Hare Krishna. Welcome to a very special episode in Lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. I'm your host, Chataratma Das. I want to thank you all for joining us. I've been watching in the chat room and I see there's a bit of anticipation as this is officially our 1-year birthday of broadcasting this show, Lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. This evening we have several special events we've tried to put together for your enjoyment and pleasure as it relates to the acharyas of our sampradaya. We have a guest speaker, and I'd like to introduce him right now, my dear friend and godbrother, Dhruva Maharaj Das, who is a longtime resident in Jagannath Puri, one of my personal inspirations in knowledge of the Vaishnavacharyas, author of more books than I can sit here and name at the top of my head, including some very wonderful books for young adults in Krishna consciousness. What was that? Das Avatar
series.
Yeah. So very, very nice. And Abai will be able to scan on the table. We have an assortment of paraphernalia from my collection of archived historical pieces from different Vaishnavacharyas, which we'll go into later in the evening and introduce each of the different items and give you all a chance. As you can see, we've gotten a little festive. It's our happy birthday decorations up here, and we want to thank you because it's by all of you and your sponsorship of this program, as well as your sponsorship of Krishna.com, that has allowed us to continue this program for 1 solid year. And we just ask for your blessings that we can continue for at least 1 more year to continue speaking about the lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. So I'm going to try this evening. I'm going to have to keep my glasses on as I look both ways to observe the chat room and speak on the camera at the same time, something we don't usually do. I do see that we have many of our regulars. Kartik, Manjesh, Mauricio has been able to make it home from work in time. Good to have you with us again, Mauricio. And a couple of new people, Sharni 108 and Radha Prema Bhakti Devidasi. Quite a long name to have to log in there with, Mata. So, but as we go through this evening's presentation, a little different than usual, where we take questions at the top of the hour, because of the special nature of tonight's event, as we introduce the different Vaishnava paraphernalia. If there's questions, you can feel free to put questions up as they come. As Dhruva Prabhu is speaking about the different places in Puri that we'll discuss, you can feel free to pose questions at that time as well. So without any further ado, we'll start with a bit. Tonight, what we're going to do as far as Vaishnava lives is I've invited Dhruva Prabhu here because his knowledge of Puri in particular is quite vast. And I say that with the greatest admiration. He's lived in Puri for what, 20, 25 years?
We built our house in 1994.
So he lives just on the outskirts of Puri and has acquainted himself. Many of you must be familiar with his book on Jagannath Puri and the details that he's been able to research and put into the book, down to the very drawings of how the kitchen is laid out. Very, very wonderful book, as well as all the historical facts. But there's one street in Puri, which we've mentioned once or twice in our broadcast, and that street is an amazing place. At one end of the street is the Samadhi of Haridas Thakur, and catty corner from there is the original home of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is now the ISKCON Puri Center. Then just around the corner and down that street is the temple of Jagadananda Pandit. And across from the temple of Jagadananda Pandit is a Balabhadra
Brahmananda
Bharati. I made that mistake earlier this evening. And then right down the street, just a couple of doors, is the temple of Chota Haridas. So a very, very nice street, and Dhruva will speak a little bit about those people. Before we get too far along here, I want to take this opportunity to introduce to you our dependable and very steady Abai, who is the tech guy behind the camera that always makes this happen. Abai, please come over to this side so everybody can get a look at who you are. Come on back here. So all of you out there that wonder how does this happen, who's doing this together, this is Abai. He is one of our second generation devotees here in Alachua, working at Krishna.com for a very long time. manning the camera while he's over here is Uddhava, who is also one of the longtime managers of Krishna.com here, helping to put this whole project together. So we want to thank them very much. In the chat room, they're thanking you as well. Hare Krishna. So our obeisances to these devotees for their service. So those of you watching, did we check the numbers ahead of time, by the way?
No, we can do that right now.
Yeah, maybe Udi could do that because it'll be interesting. Vaishnava Saints team. Hey, now we got a team here. All right.
VST.
Yeah, VST, Vaishnava Saints team. Yeah, we'll have to get, that's a great idea, Radha Prema. We're going to have to get a t-shirt, VST, the Vaishnava Saints team. All right. So that could actually be our email address, vst@krishna.com. All right, so we're going to go through some of this amazing paraphernalia that's here on the table in front of us. And everything we brought tonight is in some way related to one of the Vaishnavacharyas that we have had the fortune to speak about over this past year. So we're just going to start up here with the, and I can just point to them. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have an assortment of papers here, which I have been fortunate enough to acquire over the years, which were all the personal papers of Srila Prabhupada. This, of course, is Srila Prabhupada's business card, or calling card, as they call him. And this has the world headquarters address on Watsika Boulevard. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya. And down here in the corner, this was at one time, this little logo of Lord Chaitanya, this was at one time used on all the stationery and all the letterhead and everything back in the early days.
I remember they even had that on the cassette tapes, Golden Avatar.
Oh, Golden Avatar, they did. They had that back on the cassette tapes in the old days. Yeah. Should have had a cassette tape. Now here we have one of the correspondence envelopes from Prabhupada's desk. It's an airmail envelope. This is back when you had to specify airmail separately from regular ground mail. And this has Prabhupada's return address, Tridandi Goswami. This is in the early days. He didn't use A.C. Bhaktivedanta all those times. This is a very amazing item. This is a 1964 songbook that was published by Srila Prabhupada. He was, at the time, hosting a Janmashtami program at the Radha Damodar temple. And the governor of Uttar Pradesh was the guest of honor. And this songbook, which I've got sealed up in here to keep it over the years, is a collection of different Bengali Vaishnava songs. And the front page, of course, is in English, fortunately for us. And you can see the date on there, August, what is that? August I'm reading it upside down. 31st, 1964. So this is very, very nice item here.
Was it a Janmashtami, you said?
Janmashtami program, yes. Now here, this is one of the original copies of Easy Journey to Other Planets that Srila Prabhupada published. This was published before he came to America. Like that? There we go. This was published before he came to America. And there we go. Oh yeah, I should just look a little more carefully there. And on the back it has appreciations from 2 or 3 different Indian scholars. Very, very nice edition there. Over here, this is a very simple 16-page pamphlet that Prabhupada put together. It was a prospectus for his original League of the Devotees. Well, League of Devotees was the forerunner, if you will, or the predecessor to the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON. And Prabhupada set out in here guidelines and activities to how the members would behave, what activities they would conduct themselves with, and like that. Very, very nice book. Now this is a very rare piece here. This is a handbill, as they used to call them, or a flyer, announcing the publication of Srila Prabhupada's first 3 volumes of the Srimad Bhagavatam in Delhi, also in 1964, I believe. And this was passed out when he would distribute his Back to Godhead to encourage persons that may want to buy his Srimad Bhagavatam as well. You can just imagine Prabhupada here. I have this also. And then one of my most prized possessions, this is Srila Prabhupada's actual signature. So these are all some paperwork here. Someone is asking. Kartik wants to know if anybody is wants to know if anybody's drooling yet. Radha Prema is the archivist. Yeah. She's hoping that everything's sealed up. Radha Prema, you can rest assured that several years ago I got proper archival envelopes and sealed them all on the back so that they would be protected. Unfortunately, it means that I'm not able to open these and look through them, but all of this is very well protected. And I invite you again, Radha Prema, that if you'd like to email to Krishna.com, I'd like to connect up with you and discuss different archive type discussions. All right, a couple other things of Srila Prabhupada's. This is a glass that Srila Prabhupada ate out of lunch. Had dal in this glass in 1975 in Chicago. It was my great fortune to have been able to serve him this glass and hold on to it afterwards. Now you will remember in the Lifetime in Preparation, Satsrup Maharaj describes how Srila Prabhupada would sit in his rooms at Radha Damodar and look out the window at the courtyard of Radha Damodar and the deities there. I was in Vrindavan recently when they were doing renovation on that window, and I was able to get a piece of the old window before they threw everything out. And it was lattice work, and this is a piece of the lattice work. You can see that it's beginning to crumble, and this side, and it's all dust there. So sprinkle a little of that dust on my head. All right. So there's some nice Srila Prabhupada shot. Now, we have one item on the table, which I'm not going to go to until very late. There was a recent show, well, not so recent, a few years ago. Some of you may be familiar with this television personality called Geraldo. He's basically a very questionable person of character, but at any rate, they were opening up Al Capone's vault in Chicago. They had found this vault that belonged to Al Capone, so they're making a big deal out of it, some treasure they expected to find. Well, we have a box here that has not been opened since it was sealed in 1977, and it has very special Srila Prabhupada paraphernalia in it. And at the end of this evening's program, we'll open that and take a look at what is in there. This was a gift to me from a godbrother of mine.
You might note that you didn't even open it.
No.
To take a look to see what was in it.
No. This says, literally tonight, Dhruva and I were in the other room prying the lid. It's been sealed with wax and glue, prying it loose, and we pried it to be sure it opened, and I haven't looked in it yet. So this is going to be a surprise for all of us. I've never seen the inside of the contents of this container. It was a present to me by a dear friend of mine, and it's items, I'll give you a hint, that are in connection with the departure of Srila Prabhupada. So, now,
as you're talking about Srila Prabhupada, it's bringing to mind what India was like in 1960s and 50s, especially the 60s when Srila Prabhupada was in Radha Damodar Temple, traveling by bus, Tonga, rickshaw, not his own vehicle, much more difficult than it is today. The roads weren't as good, and especially when you found the old Easy Journey to Other Planets. One time I went to Chippewater, which is in Tundichok, down near Red Fort, one of the most crowded places in the world. And we went to the place where Srila Prabhupada printed those Srimad Bhagavatams, called the OK Press. And right OK Press. And right down the street from that was the Radhakrishna Temple, where Srila Prabhupada also had rooms upstairs. He had his Radha Damodar rooms in Vrindavan, but he also had some place so that when he was in Delhi, in the most crowded place on the planet, per square foot, how many people were there, this is where he actually published the Srimad Bhagavatam before he left. And I was fortunate enough to go there before all that stuff had been cleaned up, and many of the old covers of the Srimad Bhagavatam with that picture of the spiritual sky, and Radha and Krishna there, and then Mahavishnu and the material world down here, were many of the covers that he had published himself. And there was a trunk of some of his stuff. That's all been cleared out, of course, by now. But it was quite a historical experience.
What year was that?
It was probably 78, 79.
Wow.
Yeah, that was quite unique. So seeing these things brought back that memory of how much difficulty Srila Prabhupada went through just to travel to Delhi. what to speak of dealing with raising the funds, publishing the books, writing the books. If you remember, at that time in India, you couldn't get paper. It was a rationed commodity. So the communists had quite a bit of money and connections, and they would do a lot of these, what did you call them? Handbills and flyers. And Srila Prabhupada would collect those, turn them over, and take notes and write on the back because it was hard to get paper. So it's just all these historical things. Sometimes people might just think they're museum pieces, but they actually have links and so much richness connected to them if you know the individuals and what went on. And that's why these sacred things are so inspiring. There's actually a Sanskrit word. It's called udipana. It increases our affection. I think Srila Prabhupada gave the example of a mother seeing the baby's shoes. Oh, my baby's. The sentiment is there.
Now you all know why I'm so inspired by Dhruva and his knowledge of all these different things, because this is a very important point that we've made many times during our broadcast of how we connect ourselves with our heritage, how we have those mental, visual, and in this case physical connections that remind us where our Krishna consciousness has come from. Let's see here. Okay, just checking to see what's going in the chat room. All right, now some of the other items we have here directly connect to this street in Puri that we're going to speak about, and then the balance of them connect to a whole what's the word? Whole different group of Vaishnavas. What's that word I'm looking for? Manaj? No. Anyway. So first in the very front here, we have this branch. You know that when Haridas Thakur was in Puri, he would sit under this tree and chant the holy name. He chanted 300,000 names a day. 196?
172, I believe it is.
172 rounds. Now this, we figured it out mathematically, takes about 21, 22 hours a day of just chanting your japa. And then the rest of the time, okay, eat, sleep, and prepare your cloth or whatever it is that has to be done. So this piece of branches from that tree that Haridas would sit under and chant. Very, very wonderful. Now, just down the street from the samadhi of Haridas Thakur are two temples. Brahmananda Bharati's temple is on one side of the street, and Jagadananda Pandit's on the other side. Brahmananda Bharati was one of the 12 sannyasi associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Jagadananda Pandit was an incarnation of Satyabhama. And you'll remember the pastime of Jagadananda Pandit bringing the sandalwood oil for Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu turning it down on the pretense of being a sannyasi and not accepting any type of luxury, and Jagadananda Pandit becoming angry, as Satyabhama did with Krishna in the Dwarka Lila, and smashing it to the ground. So in that temple, there's some very, very beautiful deities. And this yellow Shalagram Shila here. Shalagram Shilas are traditionally black, but they come in many other colors as well. Yellow, green, blue. Black is the common color, and white, and also clear. I've yet to see a clear one, although I've been told of them by friends of mine. But this Shalagram Shila was given to the pujari at the Jagadananda Pandit temple by one old Brahmin that lived in Puri, and that Shila had been worshipped by his family for the last 150 years. And then it was placed in the temple of Jagadananda Pandit, and through some connection, at any rate, the pujari was kind enough to let me engage in his service. So this is the history on that Shalagram. This one over here is known as a Vraha Shalagram Shila, and this was from the temple of Brahmananda Bharati. And the pujari is the same pujari for both temples, and he mentioned to me that this Shila was worshipped since the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You can see here the opening in the front and the tusk as it wraps around to the side there. So both of these Shilas date back to very old times in Jagannath Puri from these two very prominent temples. We also have, let me see here, This is, as we're talking about the deities, we've introduced before the three deities that belong to Narottam Das Thakur. They were his worshipable Govardhan Shila with the gold crown, Dwarka Shila that is white, and Vamanadev Shalagram Shila that is black. These were the three of the 8 deities that Narottam Das carried around Vrindavan and worshipped with him. Worshipped. In this frame right here, we have a piece of one of the pages from the books of Narottam Das Thakur. As you can tell by looking at it, this books back then were written on bamboo, and on palm leaves rather, and bamboo sticks were used to etch in the ink. And this is there. In front of there is a small samadhi capsule that has the dust from the birth site of Narottam Das Thakur. Now back to Haridas Thakur. This little red.
Before you
yeah, please.
Why don't you tell them about that new thing you got from
right here,
Narottam Das Thakur? Since you're on Narottam.
Since I'm on Narottam, that's a very good point. When you'll all remember that we've talked many times when Narottam Das Thakur was a young boy, as Mother Sitala mentions in her book, A Life of Devotion, the story of Narottam, and as we've described in many other biographies, he approached the river Padmavati, and in approaching that river, the river Padmavati, she had received, as you'll remember, the gift of love of God from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the instructions that when Narottam came, she would give that love of Godhead to Narottam. Now, of course, she asked the very logical question, how will I know who Narottam is? Now, when Lord Chaitanya entered into her river, into the banks of her water, she became completely ecstatic and overflowed the banks. So Lord Chaitanya said, when that person enters your banks of your water, and you overflow in ecstasy in the same way, that will be Narottam. So Narottam did that, went to the river on an instruction from a dream of Nityananda, just as Lord Nityananda appeared to Krishna Das Kaviraj in a dream at night and told him to go to Vrindavan, he would get all good fortune. He told Narottam, you go to the river Padmavati and take bath and you'll get all good fortune there. So at that time, Mother Padmavati manifested from the waters and imbued this golden form into the body of Narottam Das Thakur. Now this place where that incident took place is called the Prem Valley. There is a tree just on the riverbank where Narottam experiences ecstasy, and this is the tree that the mother and father and the servants found him laying under when they went to look for him and later found him the next morning. So in this small box right here, we have a branch of that tree. We have dust in this container here from that place, and we have water from the Padmavati River in this little container.
Oh, so maybe that still has some of it in it.
The water is barely a few drops of moisture, unfortunately. As Radha Prema would note, it wasn't properly sealed, and so the water evaporated over the course of time. So these are these wonderful different items in connection with Narottam Das Thakur. Okay, here, this has 4 very interesting items in here. 2 of them relate to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This mud is, and the neem leaves here, you see right there, the brownish, the light brown colored ones, these are both from the neem tree that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born under. Also in here are some green leaves, and these are tulsi leaves. And these are from, right there, and these are from the deities of Murari Gupta. You'll remember we spoke about Murari Gupta some weeks ago. He was one of the seniors to Mahaprabhu and lived in Navadvip with Mahaprabhu's father. And then the final item is dust in the bottom of here, and this is from the site in Mayapur, which is said to be the very place where Jaidev Goswami wrote the Das Avatar prayers. This is a real potpourri, because potpourri is a collection of leaves and flowers, and that's exactly what this is. Here we have, first of all, this is a branch from the Kaliyadamana site, the tree that Krishna jumped out of to chastise the Kaliya demon. This is, as we described earlier, this is bark. See, there's two parts to the tree, the Siddhabakula tree, that Haridas Thakur would chant under. One is the very old part that dates back to the actual time, if I'm correct, of Haridas Thakur. And the other is the newer portion that has grown out of that tree and extended quite a large tree. So this branch is from that newer portion. This section is from the older, ancient portion of the tree that dates back to the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which you're not supposed to have.
Imagine how fortunate that living entity was, or is.
Yeah. Now think about that, because we know that all living entities, whether they be in the tree body or the plant body or the bird body, these are all spirit souls. So there's a spirit soul living in that tree that facilitated the pastimes of Mahaprabhu and Haridas Thakur, and to this day is facilitating the satisfaction of many devotees to come and take darshan at that place. Very, very wonderful. In this same collection here, we have some Tulsi Manjaris, and these Tulsi Manjaris were taken from the Tulsi plants growing in Shantipur at the home of Advaita Acharya. This is the place where he would worship the Shalagram Shila and call for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to please make his advent for the salvation. And then we have, back to Srila Prabhupada, this is a piece of the tree from 26 2nd Avenue. I'm sorry, not 26, from Tompkins Square Park, where Srila Prabhupada began the Sankirtan movement.
I have a nice story here.
Yes, please, please.
Before she left this world, our god sister Mula Prakriti
Yes.
became very inspired to write a book and interviewed many people that knew Srila Prabhupada before he left for America. So one time I asked her what inspired her to ever do that. What was the first experience? And she described it, and these two items that you've just described bring it to light. She was in Mayapur, and there was one man who all of a sudden came into the Mayapur project, sometime probably in the mid-'80s, and he was carrying a Back to Godhead magazine, and he said, "Where is this person? Where is this person?" And it was about, he was looking for Srila Prabhupada, and he was told that Prabhupada had left. And he said, well, I'll have to tell somebody the story of what happened. So Mula Prakriti, somehow, who was working in the kitchen or anything, ended up interviewing this man who was a pujari in Shantipur from his childhood. And he was telling how when he was a young man, every Sunday, a particular Brahmin would come and just sit in the back of the temple and chant his japa. Every Sunday, like clockwork. He was very regular. He would come and he would just sit there and chant. And then there was some period of time when he was no longer coming there. So he didn't think too much of it. He said the man's mood was such that he never wanted to go up and see who he was. He didn't want to interrupt his bhajan. Then there was one sannyasi who came one day. And he was sitting in the same spot with the same body language, but he looked so different now because he was wearing saffron robes, shaved up, and looked much more elder. So he went up and said, "Excuse me, Baba, are you the same person that used to came?" And he said, "Yes, my spiritual master has given me a great task, and I am here to pray to Sitanath, Advaita Acharya, for his blessings, because he has brought Mahaprabhu to this world, and now I am supposed to take this message of Mahaprabhu around the world." So the man appreciated that, and what had happened was that, if you remember the story, Srila Prabhupada went to pay his obeisances at the Samadhi of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in Mayapur just days before he was to get on the Jaladuta boat to go to America. So this was during that time. It was days before he was going to leave. He came and prayed to Advaita Acharya as well, that he could carry this message of Mahaprabhu to America. And then what happened was that years later, Western devotees started coming around, and he didn't put two and two together. He never really realized who this person was until he got a Back to Godhead magazine and saw his picture. As soon as he did that, he said, "I have to meet this man." he got on whatever vehicle he
Rickshaw,
could and
Tonga.
went to Mayapur to try and find him, and that's when Mula Prakriti. So this was the initial event that inspired her to continue trying to find others who had known Srila Prabhupada before he left for America. And of course, your Tompkins Square Park is where he took. So that Tulsi from Shantipur and the Tompkins Square Park bark from the tree sparked that.
Wow, how wonderful. Now, Radha Prema has noted, she knows a bit of French and has noted that the word potpourri means rotten pot. However, we know that there's absolutely nothing rotten about this pot of potpourri here. Okay. We also have in here a piece of wood. It goes like this. From the floor at 26 2nd Avenue, before it was renovated in the current condition it is as a preaching center. This is a part of the original floor that Prabhupada would have walked on. And we have in here, many times we've spoken about Ambika Kalna and the wonderful devotees that came from there. Gauridas Pandit, Hridoy Chaitanya, Dukhi Krishna, Shamananda. These devotees all had connections with Ambika Kalna. It is also the place where the marriage of Nityananda to Vasudha and Janava took place. So, I forgot that piece. I have the cloth from there. Anyway, another time. So, at any rate, from those deities of Gauridas Pandit, the first Gaurnitai deities, you may remember Lord Chaitanya had gone to a kirtan on the banks of the Ganga, and the deities came and joined, and Gauridas Pandit came with a stick and demanded they go back, and so Lord Chaitanya and the deities exchanged places. And in exchanging places, Lord Chaitanya emphasized the point there is no difference between his deity form and his actual self. So this collection of marigold flower petals used to be a garland from those deities, and over the course of years it just deteriorated, and now it's just a wonderful collection of marigold seeds. All right, so that's this little container. What else do we have here? I believe we've and this Pavitra. Many of you are familiar with the ropes that you see in the Mayapur temple that are offered to Lord Nrsingadev and then worn by the devotees. This ceremony is actually called Pavitra Paniyakadasi, and it takes place once a year. And the Pavitra Paniyakadasi is an Akadasi when these types of silk ropes, specially made and tied certain numbers of times according to scripture, are offered to the deity by the pujaris to relieve any imperfections that may have been there in that year's worship. And then those are given as prasadam to the devotees to wear, because they become non-different from the deities. One becomes touched with the mercy of the deity by wearing them. So this one is from the famous Rangaji deity in South India. The present Acharya there at that temple is Sambat Kumar Bhattacharya, and this was given to him by his father directly from the Rangaji deity, and then turned over to my friend Bhakti Vishwamadeva Maharaj, who has passed it on to me. So we have this nice collection of items here. One item still left that we... Which one? Oh, the Haridas Thakur. Yeah. One item still left that we haven't opened, which if you stick around, you'll see at the end of the show. And we have also, as we started in that direction, this item here has flower petals and salt from Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi in it, as well as dust from the place where Haridas Thakur converted the prostitute. And I'll ask Dhruva to tell that story because he's very well versed in that pastime.
Actually, I'm not well versed in that pastime, but I do remember it. There was a envious man in Bengal named Ramachandra Khan. And Ramachandra Khan, as a Hindu, was so envious and angry that a Muslim, Haridas Thakur, was receiving so much respect and worship from the local village people. They would go out and offer. He was doing his bhajan, sitting, chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra every day, all day long. And people came and paid their obeisances. They came and offered goods to Haridas so he didn't have to makeover endeavor for his daily maintenance. And Ramachandra Khan became so envious and angry that he decided that he would try to defame Haridas Thakur, who was a young brahmachari at the time. So he went to some local prostitutes and told them that he would pay them well to take on this task. And there was one young prostitute that said, yes, I'll take that challenge. I'll do this. But first, so Ramachandra Khan said, okay, when you go to Haridas Thakur, I'll bring the police constable and we'll arrest him. And she said, no, first let me have union with Haridas Thakur. That way we can really, create the web of ill intent and show
Besides,
that,
that was
so
her profession. She wanted some satisfaction. Yeah.
Yes. So she went to Haridas Thakur's. The description that Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami gives in Chaitanya Charitamrita is very beautiful. The river Ganges was nearby, so the sound of the water was there. Beautiful flowers in the trees were blooming, so the scent of the flowers was there. There was a Tulsi Mandap with Tulsi tree on it, Tulsi plant that Haridas used to chant at. And the evening was just setting, so there was kind of a glow. Nature sometimes does that. And at that time, the prostitute came before Haridas, and it's described that with various feminine gestures that would even bewilder Lord Brahma, she tried to attract the mind of Haridas Thakur, paid her obeisances, and came on to him explaining, my dear Thakur, you are so advanced that I need to have union with you or I'll simply die. And Haridas Thakur said, well, I've taken this vow to chant a certain number of rounds and I can't really stop before that, so sit down, wait until I'm finished chanting, and then I'll fulfill your desire. And the whole night went by where she was listening. She got up and left. The next day she came back and a similar event took place. And he even apologized. He said, I'm sorry that I couldn't fulfill your desire, but I've taken the vow to chant so many rounds per month and I'm not done. I think I'll probably finish tonight, but I'm not certain. So please sit and listen to the chanting of the holy name. Just like this bakula tree, she just sat there and listened. But in that time with Haridas Thakur, by the association, the Sangha, Sadhu Sangha of Haridas Thakur chanting Hare Krishna, her heart became a little soft, and she began to chant herself, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's called Namabhas. It's not pure Nam, but she chanted. The third day, she came to Haridas Thakur and paid her obeisances, and now her heart had melted. She understood what a saintly individual she was, and she broke down and completely surrendered and said, my dear sir, I'm engaged in a sinful occupation. I was hired by Ramachandra Khan to come and try to pollute you and make your name bad. And Haridas Thakur said, I knew all about Ramachandra Khan's plans, but I stayed, and I would have left that very day, but I stayed here to deliver you. Now you stay here, you chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra here at this place where I've been chanting. Go give all your paraphernalia that you've received from your sinful occupation, give that to the Brahmins, and come back here and sit peacefully and chant Hare Krishna. There are many sub-levels and branches to the story that go on into other topics of philosophy, but that's the basic, beautiful story. And you're saying that this dust is from that same place. So many of us, especially in Kali Yuga, have a similar, and the thing that I noted is that you have it in there with Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi paraphernalia. So just as Haridas Thakur had the Shakti power to transform the life of such a person who was ignorantly sinful in her lifestyle, Srila Prabhupada similarly went into the Bowery of New York, into the armpit of Kali Yuga, and is taking people, even continuing today, simply through his books and his movement, and transforming the lives of people into beautiful Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, from the most sinful, degraded situations in their prior life. So I just found it kind of yoga mayak that you did there.
I have managed to be sure and get a copy of Dhruva Maharaj's book, Jai Jagannath, and we're going to ask him to speak a bit about this street in Jagannath Puri, these personalities here. We've talked a little bit about Haridas Thakur. Maybe you could explain a bit about what his samadhi looks like nowadays as opposed to how it must have been at the time that Mahaprabhu created it.
Yes, it's described that when Haridas Thakur left his body, in the association of all the Vaishnavas, a very beautiful description of how he, like two bumblebees, he fixed his eyes on the face of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was lying down. If you remember this story, Govinda brought him the prasadam, and he was lying down, and he took the dust of all the Vaishnavas who had gathered around, and they were having big kirtan. And he took Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, put them on his chest, and looked at Lord Chaitanya's face and said, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Sri Krishna, and at that moment left his body. And Lord Chaitanya was so overwhelmed that he actually picked Haridas Thakur's body up and began dancing with it. And after some time, Krishna Pandit, I think, did a wonderful dance at that time also. So, and I think you must have talked about Krishna Pandit's dancing in your,
Yes.
in your presentation. It's so wonderful to watch someone who really dances nicely, isn't it? You know, the rhythm, the whole movement of their body and the music, it's attractive. Even materially, what to speak of spiritually. So Lord Chaitanya dancing with Haridas Thakur's body must have been a sight to behold. But in time, Swarup Damodar explained that there are rituals that we must do for the body. Haridas Thakur's place of bhajan near the Siddhapa Kool is probably about 700 or 800 yards from the place where his samadhi is, probably even further, maybe a quarter of a mile. It's a little bit of a hike, depending on which road and the way the roads were those days. So they took Haridas Thakur's body on a palanquin, which is the way Hindus or Vaishnavas transport a body when it's going to be taken to its burial or cremation area. And they traveled with Haridas Thakur's body to the sea, towards the sea. And at that time, of course, the area called Swargadwar, which is kind of a hilly area on the south side of Puri, facing the ocean, they dug a big pit. They dug into the sand and placed Haridas Thakur's body into the sand at Jagannath Puri, and then placed all kinds of, as you had, pavitras, sandalwood, flowers, sacred articles. They placed on his body from Lord Jagannath as Mahaprasadam, and then covered his body. And it's described that they made a fence around it, probably just a little few sticks and everything, so everybody would know not to step on this samadhi. And who knows how many hundreds of years went by before the present building, which is there now, very beautiful building actually. My understanding is that in the 1930s, one of the wealthier merchants from Calcutta, donated some money, and it was built into a very nice location. They have a nice ashram there. Keep nice cows, keep it very clean. There's an interesting story, perhaps we could have it another time, about how the mantra, if anybody's been to Jagannath Puri, they don't chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. They chant different mantras, a different mantra throughout Puri. Nitai Go Radhe Sham, Japa Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. There's a story of a person called Radharaman Chakravarti, or Radharaman Babaji, and that whole history is there. And the nice thing about Haridas Thakur's samadhi previously, now whenever you go into that temple, they have, like we have 24-hour kirtan in our Krishna Balaram Mandir, they have constant kirtan of this Nitai Go Radhe Sham, Japa Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. And for the one who's chanting Hare Krishna or wants to chant japa or be in a quiet meditative mood, it's a little bit difficult. But the nice thing about Haridas Thakur's samadhi is the way previously it was built, there was windows with kind of openings, and you're very close to the sea, so the breezes come by. You can smell the salt. You can hear the waves in the distance if the kirtan isn't so loud. It's very, and they have a beautiful, almost like I don't know, what do they call those? On top of a samadhi, it's almost like the end of a spaceship or a bullet.
Yeah, they have a name for it. I forget what it's called.
But nice tilak is on it, and Haridas Thakur's. There's a set of japa beads. I doubt it was Haridas Thakur's original, but they have that nice picture. There's a famous Bengali painting of Lord Chaitanya and his associates. Gadadhar Pandit is reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. King Patraprudra is paying his obeisances. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Rupan Sanatan, Swarup Damodar, some other devotees are there. And in the side, off to the side, is somebody with a beard, kind of hanging something on it.
Hanging their kopans or something,
so,
it looks like?
Yes. So they have a big blow-up of that in Haridas Thakur's Samadhi. So when you're there, and then they have deities of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and Advaita Acharya. But when you're there, you very much sense and feel the presence of Haridas Thakur in a very uplifting way. It's not like a heavy kind of funeral, like you go to the Taj Mahal and it's kind of dark and damp, and it's not uplifting. It's kind of, you feel like you've walked into a morgue.
Right.
Haridas Thakur Samadhi is not at all like that. It's very uplifting and ecstatic. I've been in a lot of kirtans. Devotees, when they visit, they love to go and, of course, chant Hare Krishna and have kirtans and circumambulate and jump up and down and become so ecstatic in the presence of Haridas Thakur. Very special devotee.
Wonderful place.
Yes.
Wonderful place. They also, in that temple, have, we have no picture? Is there a reason? At least on the monitor, there's no picture.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Loose connection, maybe.
All right, yeah. So, in that same temple, I remember that they have the most amazing dioramas around the top of the temple room. Just incredible, the different pastimes of Mahaprabhu and Haridas, and just very, very beautifully done.
Yeah.
Now, just down the street, maybe distance you could throw a rock, I would imagine, not much further than that, is the temple of Jagadananda Pandit. What do you know about that temple of Jagadananda Pandit?
You probably know more than me. I remember that when I first started going to Puri, it was not even noticeable. It was probably just a little door in the wall. But I believe Indradumna Maharaj has helped. Yes. So you go ahead and explain how he helped renovate that, became inspired.
Well, this mood of Jagadananda Pandit, as I mentioned earlier, he was a manifestation of Satyabhama, one of the queens in Dwarka, and it was a great mood of service to Mahaprabhu, but at the same time, a little bit of feeling of separation, that there's not a little more, So at any rate, Indradumna Maharaj, as Dhruva Prabhu pointed out, this temple was quite run down and not very noticeable, not very well maintained. And somehow or another, Indradumna Maharaj was inspired to step in and get involved in helping with the renovation there, as he has done with the renovation at Braj Mohan in Vrindavan. And if you go there now, it's a very, very nice place, nicely decorated, nicely cleaned up, marble floors, facilities for guests to sit and have nice bhajan. The deity worship goes on very nicely. So there's a very nice painting in that temple room of Jagadananda Pandit throwing down the container of sandalwood oil. Very, very beautiful. And the worship there is also very nice. I've only been there one time.
Oh, really?
Only one time, but I was so touched by it. Yes. It was a very beautiful place. But then across the street from there is Brahmananda Bharati's temple as well. And do you know something about that particular place?
Don't know so much about the temple, been there, but know more about Brahmananda Bharati and his pastimes. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first took sannyas, he left Navadvip and went and came to Jagannath Puri on Mother Sachi's order, but didn't stay long, only stayed a few months the first time, and then traveled south and went on tour throughout India for several years in southern India. Then when he came back is when many different devotees from around India came to be with him, and from Bengal. So one time he had met Brahmananda Bharati earlier during his travels in South India and made arrangements. You meet me, just like with Ramananda Roy. You meet me back in Puri and we'll spend time enjoying talking about Krishna together. Brahmananda Bharati was little senior to Mahaprabhu. And when he came to Puri, Mahaprabhu's servants came and said, Brahmananda Bharati has come. Do you want us to bring him to you? And he said, no. I should go see Brahmananda Bharati. He's my senior. Don't bring him here. I should go meet him out of etiquette.
Oh, nice mood.
So he came before Brahmananda Bharati, who at the time was wearing deerskin. In the culture at the time of India 500 years ago, deerskin was a common dress for a yogi, meditator, sadhu. But Lord Chaitanya was not showed by this pastime that he was not in favor of that dress. So he turned to his servant, even though Brahmananda Bharati was right in front of him, wearing the deerskin. And he said, I thought you said that Brahmananda Bharati was here. I don't see Brahmananda Bharati. And Brahmananda Bharati, in his mind, Sarvasya chaham hridisani visto matak smitir jnanam apohanam cha. He understood, because Krishna gives us the intelligence. Oh, Mahaprabhu doesn't approve of my outfit, my deerskin outfit. So I won't wear this anymore. If Mahaprabhu is not pleased, I don't want this thing. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood his mind and heart. And then I think there's some sort of way that someone brought Brahmananda Bharati sannyas robes, and he changed. And then Mahaprabhu said, oh, Brahmananda Bharati. And then he paid his obeisances. So in this way he had sweet but instructive pastimes. Oh, I can just imagine what it was like with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Were there 12 sannyasis? 12 sannyasis. And that Sangha at Tota Gopinath every day with Gadadhar Pandit just hearing and chanting, and such beautiful. It's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat that when they would go to the ocean and sit down on the beach and have kirtan, all the devotees would just sit around Mahaprabhu, just like when Krishna ate lunch and everybody was just looking at his face.
All the cowherd boys. Yeah.
So when Mahaprabhu, and when they would have kirtan, he was the embodiment of emotions of love of Godhead. And when, just imagine watching the personification of that, the moods, the subtle experiences and expressions that would manifest on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Brahmananda Bharati and all these devotees that were his personal associates got to experience such sweet, loving manifestations. Even though there's instruction involved.
Right. Well, that's what I was thinking when you mentioned this pastime, how amazing it is that the devotee understood what the Lord was trying to say to him, and then the Lord understood that the devotee understood. So this is the mood between Krishna and his devotees. The devotee wants to do something for Krishna, and Krishna wants to serve the devotee to facilitate, and back and forth that love is always growing. So in this way they exchange that instruction, neither one of them saying anything particular to the subject, but both of them understanding the inner mood that was being intended there.
Yes.
Now, just when you come out of the temple of Brahmananda Bharati, as you're walking out the door, you go to the left and down, I think it's 3-4 buildings.
If that,
just very short distance, is the temple of Chota Haridas. Yes. Now, Chota Haridas, of course, Junior Haridas, as he's sometimes called, had wonderful deities of Krishna and Balaram, if I remember correctly. What can you tell us about them?
I don't. They're very beautiful, extremely beautiful. Of course, we love Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan, and those were the first Krishna Balaram deities I ever saw. And there's Krishna and Balaram in St. Louis.
Ah, yes.
And the Krishna Balaram in Jagannath Puri that were Chota Haridasas are not the same Balaram like that feature. I think he plays a horn. He's playing a flute type of like buffalo horn. For if I'm not mistaken, like that, and different kind of, but very sweet, beautiful deities, about almost as tall as a human, a little bit shorter. And this is, of course, we can just imagine this location, as I said before, 500 years ago, was rather unpopulated, an area out near the beach. The town of Puri, the temple, is the vortex for the entire town's activities. And this has been going on for thousands of years. And we're talking, like at least half a mile from the temple to the beach. And of course, people would go to the beach, but not. It wasn't a developed area for residential purposes. But Mahaprabhu's associates down this streeted area were in various parts of the forest or beach sand dunes doing their different puja. And Chota Haridas Thakur must have had some sort of small temple, simple situation like Rupa had Radha Govinda, Sanatana Goswami, Madan Mohan. Different devotees were worshipping these forms of Krishna, so he was worshipping Krishna and Balaram when Bhagavan Acharya called him. And what did he ask him?
There's a bit of rice that's needed for Mahaprabhu's lunch. Could you go and, was it Siknihi's sister?
Madhavi Devi.
Madhavi. And ask her for that rice. Just a bit, we need to finish the meal.
So Chota Haridas went, of course, and begged the rice. And they cooked that rice and offered it to Mahaprabhu. And while he was eating it, he was enjoying it, it seemed. He said, "Oh, nice rice. Where'd you get this rice?" He said, "Oh, Chota Haridas went to Madhavi Devi and got that rice." So Mahaprabhu enjoyed his meal. He finished, and then he told his servant, Govinda, "Don't allow Chota Haridas to come here anymore. Not for my audience." No one could understand why. So they went to Chota Haridas. They said, "Chota Haridas, Mahaprabhu said, you can't take darshan anymore. Don't come near him. What did you do?" "I don't know. Whatever it did, I'll do some penance." And he began to fast. Days and days went by. And then Swarup Damodar went to him and said, "Chota Haridas, no, don't do this fasting. This is kind of like just the Lord's play. You fast, he's going to make it, he's going to, this is only going to enthuse his not wanting you to come. You go ahead, you take prasad. He'll relent after some time." But when Mahaprabhu didn't, the devotees again appealed and appealed and appealed several times to Mahaprabhu. And then finally they said, "What did he do? Why is this such a dire matter that you won't allow him audience?" And he said, "I can't stand to see the face of a person who has taken a vow of sannyas but talks intimately with women. My mind is disturbed by this. I don't want to see him." And by this, the purports that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote and Prabhupada expounded on, enhanced, is that he wanted our movement, the Gaudiya Vaishnava society, to understand the principle of taking that vow and living by the vows that we take. It's an important part, just like in love. In love, it means if you tell somebody, "I'll do this for you, I want to do this, I will do this," then that person expects you to do it out of the trust that they have in the loving relationship. So time went by and Mahaprabhu didn't relent. So after a year went by, Chota Haridas decided, my life is useless. If Mahaprabhu, God, won't favor me, what use is this life? I don't need it. Interestingly enough, someone has told me that there's a Shastric quote that if one commits suicide, he becomes a ghost, unless he does it at the Triveni in Prayag, where the Jamuna, the Ganges, and the Saraswati converge, and does a particular ritual. Then he's liberated.
That answers a long-standing question many devotees have always wondered about.
Yes. Yeah. So what happened was that Chota Haridas disappeared from Puri one day. No one could understand what happened to him. Another devotee from Bengal went to take his bath at Kumbh Mela at the confluence of the three rivers, the Ganges, the Jamuna, and the Saraswati, at the same place. While he was there, he heard the story about one of Mahaprabhu's associates coming to the Triveni, doing the sacrifice and the proper ceremonies, and then the ritual is that out of repentance and feeling so bad for one's misdeeds, that the person dives into the water and goes down so far they can never come back up and drowns. So when all the devotees from Bengal came to Puri the next year to see Mahaprabhu, they told the story, and everybody therefore understood what had happened to Chota Haridas. And once the devotees were down by the ocean, and it was in the evening, and they could hear Chota Haridas singing. They heard a voice. And someone conjured that, oh, he's become a ghost and we can hear him. And Swarup Damodar said, no, this is not a fact. He lived in a holy place, he was dear to Mahaprabhu, and he died in a holy place. You'll understand all of this later. And it's described, he was in a spiritual body. This was a Leela.
It's worth indicating at this point that he was known for his singing.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, he was a singer. Yeah.
Very nice.
I read that someplace.
Sweet. So it's a mystical kind of, a lot of hidden meanings to that Leela. But his Krishna Balaram deities are still there for us to go and take darshan and appreciate. Such beautiful, nice, sweet,
yeah,
two cowherd
nice
boy kind of deities. So if you're ever in Puri, don't forget to take darshan of Krishna and Balaram.
So these places that we've described this evening in Jagannath Puri on this wonderful street are available to anyone that takes the time to go and visit Jagannath Puri. And if you go there during the correct time of year, you just might chance to meet Dhruva Maharaj Prabhu.
And if you don't, you can just get his book.
Yes, we do have a copy. It was asked earlier about his book. Now, I've been looking in the chat room, and there's much anticipation about opening this box. Yes. And many people wondering, when are we going to open the box? And one devotee here, who is at Manjesh, had to step away from the computer, but is now listening instead of being able to watch on the monitor. So as Abai gets the camera ready, he's going to bring it over. Now, in 1977, November of 1977, Srila Prabhupada departed from this world, and different devotees had gathered there from different parts of the world, and paraphernalia associated with Prabhupada's departure was given to them to take back to their home temples. At that time, the head pujari in New York was my dear friend Pranadas, who had this box, and in due course of time gave it to me. It was sealed when he gave it to me in 1978. I've never opened it since then, and we will now open it on camera for the first time.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
We see in here the bottle that at one time had water from Srila Prabhupada's final Abhishek. There's a little residue of water in there. We see a piece of the cloth that was the gumpsha on Srila Prabhupada's body when he was placed in that Abhishek. These are whole flowers, unlike we see many times flower petals. These are whole flowers from that Abhishek. And I see here something in the bottom. This is a spoon. This must, I had no idea this was in here. This must be a spoon that was used by Srila Prabhupada. There's no other explanation why that would be in there. And this is pieces of wool. Prabhupada had that wool chadar that he was wearing there at the end. So pieces of that wool. So this is the first time we've opened this, and we hope all of you have appreciated getting to have the darshan of this wonderful collection of articles from Srila Prabhupada's departure some 32 years ago. Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a quick look through the chat room here. There's been a couple of items brought up here. Someone was asking, Mauricio was asking, why the predominant deities in Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram, are Krishna Balaram, unlike other ISKCON temples around the world where Radharani is, especially with Radharani being the Ishwari of Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada installed those deities of Krishna Balaram because that area, Raman Reti, is the area where the cowherd boys would play. Is very well known for that. And unlike going there now, if you go there now, it's the hubbub of everything. But when that temple was built, I was just looking at some video footage of that the other day. It was way out in the middle of nowhere. There was nothing anywhere near around, and it was a very quiet and peaceful area. And these are two of the particular reasons. You like to add anything to that? Have any?
Well, Srila Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that he wanted to show that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are non-different. than Krishna and Balaram.
Mm.
So
Very
that
nice.
was a big part of his mood.
So these are three of the principal reasons that we see. Let me see. Let's go back up a little bit. There was a couple of questions back up there. Just I guess not. Okay, I thought there were other questions. If any of you in our chat room do have additional questions you would like to put forth to Dhruva Prabhu or myself, we're going to just go over a couple of more things as we wind up here. We've gone a little longer than our usual session. I saw in the chat room they were saying, don't stop them, let them go. But we've had a very, very wonderful time. And this has been a great opportunity to share some of this spiritual heritage of the Vaishnavacharyas with all of you, even though you may be in many faraway places. And I would encourage you, this book, Jai Jagannath, which Dhruva Prabhu has written, will give you a very wonderful insight into not only the superficial and very visible side of Jagannath Puri, but into the deeper spiritual understanding of Jagannath Puri as well as a lot of information about the many different details and aspects of the type of worship that goes on in the Jagannath Mandir. So we have no one putting any questions forth, and we've run a little bit over time. We want to thank very much
Thank you.
Dhruva Prabhu for coming. We want
The cake.
to mention that we're very happy that Krishna.com has hosted us for 1 year. There's a lighter here somewhere. Where is that? I think it's in that... We're not live yet, right? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Are we back?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see the chat room so I can see who's in there. All right. Hey, we're real sorry about that, Prabhu. We're just getting ready for the birthday celebration and the camera went out. So we've got everything back up. We're just going to get the chat room going. Give us just a second here to get everything set back up. All right. We're back in, it looks like. Okay. All right. Enter the room and bingo. We're back. Okay. All right, I saw them saying that we're back, so that's good. Okay, listen. Okay, all right. So here we go. This is our 1 year birthday cake, and our 1 year birthday wishes for another year at least in being able to share with all of you the lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. We're going to eat this now. You're going to have to eat it virtually. Hey, you got the camera in your hand, so show them Udi.
Yes.
This is Uddhava Prabhu, and this is Manu. Many of you know Manu. And these are the two devotees who are working so hard to keep these broadcasts going.
Behind the scenes.
All right. So there we are again. We want to thank you all. Yeah, happy birthday, VST, Vaishnava
Saints team.
Vaishnava Saints team. All right. Thank you very much once again. And with that, we'll close with another episode in the lives of the Vaishnavacharyas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.